in today's video, we will be talking about the top tips for beginners that are learning the piano. When you're starting out with the piano, there are some things that I find are very important to look out for and to always keep in mind in order to create the right habits from the get-go. There is nothing worse than creating bad habits without even realizing and without even knowing, and then having to undo them. So this is why I made this video, in order to make sure that you know what to look out for, and in order to make sure that you create good habits from the start so that you can progress quickly with your piano practice. As you can see, I am not at home right now. I am actually in the Netherlands. This is my hotel room because I'm playing at a festival here. So I'm in the Netherlands for the entire week, and this is why I'm recording the video from here this time. So the first thing that I want to mention is that when you learn something as complex as playing the piano or any other new thing, the most important thing is that you form new habits, that you form new connections in your brain, that you form new routines connected to that thing. So in this case, connected to playing the piano. This is why I would say the most important thing to do is to practice regularly, ideally daily. So the habit to avoid is to practice a lot maybe on the weekend when you have a lot of time, and then not so much during the week. It is so much more valuable if you practice just a little bit, even if it is just 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever kind of time you have every single day, and do that regularly rather than to just practice a lot on one day and then nothing on the other days. Regular practice really is key to improving and to forming these new connections in your brain, to forming these new habits. So this is my number one tip to you. The second thing I want to mention is that you shouldn't always practice both hands at the same time. Hand independence is one of the biggest difficulties when starting out with playing the piano. So definitely make sure that you're practicing your hands separately. It is important for many different reasons. First of all, so that you can form a very clear idea of what it feels like to play the hands separately. Secondly, that you avoid any mistakes, because when we put both hands together, little mistakes start creeping in and you don't really notice because you're focused on the entire picture. So it is very valuable to break it down, practice the right hand separately, practice the left hand separately, really focus on what the mistakes are, what you can improve, hand posture, sound, rhythm, color, all these things, and make sure that the hand is perfected, and then make sure that the other hand is perfected, and then put them together. In general, breaking the piece down into little parts and working on them before putting everything together is very helpful. So even though it is so much more fun to play through the entire piece and to play both hands at the same time, I would definitely recommend, especially if you are a beginner, to do this breaking down, to practice little sections, to practice the hands separately, to practice a voice separately. Make sure to perfect these little blocks before you put all these blocks on top of each other and build the entire construction. The next habit that you should avoid is only playing with the pedal. I know that the pedal is a beautiful effect and we love using the pedal. It makes the sound warm and it just feels nice playing with the pedal, but it is so important, once again, to break down the piece, and connected to that is also just taking away the pedal and seeing clearly what you're playing. You get so much clarity when you practice without pedal, even if it doesn't sound that great. You listen to exactly what you are doing. So when you're starting out with a piece, you practice separately, as I already mentioned, the hands separately, you practice in sections, and also you practice without the pedal to make sure that everything is in place. And once you've mastered all of that, that's when you then put everything together, you put in the pedal, and it only gets easier from there. A challenge that I give myself often is to try to make a certain phrase sound good without the pedal. Because very often the pedal kind of fools us and makes us think that we are producing, let's say, a beautiful legato when actually we are not. And when we take it away, we realize that we are playing such a strong non-legato that it is actually not acceptable. So I try to sometimes create the illusion of the pedal being there, or to just simply take away the pedal and try to create the most beautiful legato that I can, so that then when I add the pedal, things seem so much easier because I have the added help of the pedal, plus my fingers have actually learned to also sound good without it. The next habit that you should avoid is connected to what I said before. It is always nice to play through the piece, to see how the music will sound, to see how the character will sound. After all, this is why we make music. This is why you probably want to play the piano, because you want to convey a certain emotion or play a certain melody that reminds you of something. But one of the habits that you should avoid is only playing through the piece fast, or only playing through the piece in tempo, especially when you're a beginner, but also when you're advanced. This really goes for every stage that you're in. Make sure that you are practicing slowly. I've mentioned slow practice a lot of times. I've made separate videos on why it is important to practice slowly. But if you're a beginner, make sure that you're not only playing in tempo. Make sure that once again, you're breaking the piece down, you're practicing slowly, you are taking your time in order to place your fingers exactly where they are supposed to be, in order to make sure that you know how you have to press a key, which finger you have to activate, in which way, how you have to position it in order to create a certain sound. So make sure that you include slow practice in your practice routine. Another thing I want to mention, especially when talking about beginners, is that it's important to remember that learning the piano is a long process. Playing the piano effortlessly is a very complex thing to do. And if you're only starting out, it's going to seem like it is so far away, like this goal of yours is almost unreachable, but it is not. It simply takes time. So just keep in mind that there is no need to rush. There is no need to be able to play something within a week or within 2 weeks. Just take your time. If I think about what it was like for me when I started the piano, luckily I started very young, but when I was 6 years old and started out playing the piano, I wasn't thinking of Rachmaninoff Concerto No. 2. I was just simply taking it one step at a time. And in the beginning, the progress is slow, but it is important that you take your time, that you learn these first steps, and that you have a foundation that you are building. Because with piano, if you don't have this foundation in the beginning, there is no way that you can progress, because you cannot build without that foundation. So take your time. Just know that it takes time, and it can be so much fun no matter which stage you are in. You're going to start out with the simple things and find the beauty in that, and then slowly progress from there. So take your time and enjoy every step. And finally, the last tip that I want to mention is to practice technique specifically. So I've made an entire video on how much technique you should be practicing and what I think is helpful. I've also made a video on technique repertoire, so feel free to check these videos out. I will link them in the description box down below. But I do think that when you are a beginner, after that the perspectives change. But when you are a beginner, it is important to invest some time in technique specifically. Practice scales, practice studies, practice specific technical exercises. It's going to be so helpful to you in order to progress quickly. Later on, when you're playing more complex pieces, you can also practice technique in the piece itself. But in the beginning, it's important to just create that foundation once again, build your technique from the start. And this is why I would definitely recommend practicing technique specifically. Connected to that, I just want to mention once again, most of you already know, I also have an online piano course that you can purchase. It goes in depth. It has many different camera angles. You can see my hands from all sides. It includes a workbook, and it is about basic technique building exercises. So if you are a beginner and you're looking to build your technique, this is definitely for you. These are exercises that I actually also still do today. In part, they are part of my warm-up routine because I find them so helpful. They just remind my fingers what they have to do. They're a good check for me to see if everything is still right. They make sure that I don't hurt myself or create any tension while I'm playing. So if you're interested, then check that out. It is always linked in the description box of my videos. And if you've already gone through the course, definitely let me know what you think. So these were my top tips for beginners when learning the piano. I hope that you found this video helpful. Let me know what you think. Please add any other tips that you find important in the comments down below. I always like reading your comments. I find them so interesting, and thank you so much for everyone that has been commenting and adding to my thoughts in all the previous videos. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. That would help me a lot, and I will see you again in the next video next week. Bye.